game begin.
A shake of hands, and this, dear friends, is Gukesh opens the game with 1d4. Wow. He's repeated the line that gave him the victory. 1d4. Not the line, but the first move. Knight comes out to f6. And now pawn to c4 played. Ding goes for e6. And now will Gukesh allow the Nimzo Indian with knight c3? No, he goes g3. This move can lead you into the Catalan territory after d5. But first, Ding gives a check. This is the Bogo Indian. But it depends whether the pawn goes on d5 or not later. Bishop d2. And you can take here, you can push the pawn to a5. You can also drop your bishop back to e7. Ding decides to bring his bishop back to e7, telling Gukesh that look, you won a tempo here with bishop d2, but your bishop does not want to be there. Now Gukesh aims to play e4, so Ding instantly strikes in the center with d5. The knight comes out to f3. And generally in such positions, taking d takes c4 is a bad idea when you have provoked bishop d2. So castles make sense. And now white castles. So we are going to witness closed Catalan, not open with d takes c4, but closed with c6 is most likely, and that is exactly what Ding does. He plays his pawn to c6. Queen comes up to c2, defending the pawn on c4. And now knight bd7. He develops the knight. And the rook comes to d1. Just opposite the queen. And this is a position that has been played several thousand times. b6 is played, white goes bishop f4, knight then comes to c3. But Gukesh plays a move that is not very popular. It has been played in only a few 20 odd games. Bishop c3. The idea, of course, is to get the knight here and push e4. Bishop b7. This was played by Anish Giri in his game against Hans Niemann. But in that one, instead of bishop b7, Hans had gone knight e4. But here knight d2 with the idea of e4. And Ding is like, if you want to play e4, be my guest, because I'm ready for it. I'll take, and push c5, and black is doing well. So Gukesh first brings the rook into the game. And here it's a waiting strategy, because if you push c5, white is slightly better prepared for the opening of the position. So rook fd8 was played here by Ding, just getting the rook into the center of the board. And now will Gukesh play e4? No, he goes b4. Pushes the pawn. Pushes pawn to c5. Okay, very interesting move. Pawn to c5 has been played. The idea now is to take. He takes on c5. And Ding has to take back. B takes c5. And in some ways, black has equalized, because when you take here, I'll take back with the queen. Even if you take here, I'm ready with my knight. And it's completely fine for black. Gukesh plays queen b2. And his point is, if you take here, he's very happy with knight c4. And if you take here, he's again happy with bishop d4, putting pressure. So a very interesting move, queen b2. And Ding finds this nice little move, knight b6, threatening knight a4. And also this pawn on c4. Gukesh goes and pins the knight. So the pressure in the center keeps mounting, while new pressures are being created, especially on the b6 knight. He takes here, and I think Gukesh will take back. And here's the key point. When you take back here and you take back on c4, you take with the rook, because if the bishop is taken, I'll take your bishop on b7. So yes, Gukesh does play knight takes c4, and now Ding plays a very surprising move, bishop takes f3, but now you understand the point. If you take back here, I take here, take here, there's no bishop to be taken on b7. So that's the reason why first he must take bishop b6, attacking the queen, pawn takes, and now bishop takes f3. White now has a very small edge because the rook is attacked, also the pawn on b6 is hanging. So you can go rook b8, you can go rook a6. These are two moves that come to mind. Rook b8 looks a little bit passive because of knight e5. He goes rook a6, and now Gukesh has a good move here. Knight e5, threatening knight c6, and it does look pretty strong here. Let's say bishop d6, knight goes to c6, and that knight is very irritatingly placed. But Gukesh goes queen b5, which is perhaps not the most accurate move. He seems to have missed something in the line after rook takes a2, because now he's able to get rid of that pawn. Gukesh takes on b6. Yes, it's true that now this pawn is weak, and in fact the threat is to win this pawn shortly. But Ding finds this epic move, queen a7, and his point is after d takes c5 takes, he has this move rook a5, and the c5 pawn falls. So queen has to go back. So queen b1 played here, attacking the rook, maybe just keeping an eye here. Also, you can't really take here because of knight c8 with a very nasty fork. So he goes rook b8, pinning the knight. And now Gukesh takes on c5. If you take back bishop c5, there is rook c5. You can't take here because it's a back rank mate. But what a move by Ding. Rook a6. He keeps an eye here, threatening bishop c5. In fact, whatever you play, he's going to take here on c5. And that's exactly what he does. Gukesh did try for a lot in the position, but in the end, I think Ding Liren has managed to find some really good ideas and equalize the game. Queen takes c5 played. And now queen takes b6, an important move. If you would have taken with the rook, which is the more natural one, then rook a1 traps the queen, believe it or not. So queen b6, rook takes b6, and now the position is absolutely equal. Gukesh plays rook c6, Ding takes, bishop takes. Well, if someone can claim to be slightly better here, then it is black, because black has the knight, and a knight is a short range piece. So because the pawns are all on one side of the board, this helps the knight. But it is such a simplified position that the knight cannot assert its dominance over the bishop in short range. Imagine if there were certain weaknesses, some doubled pawns, some isolated pawns, then for sure the knight would have been able to do well here. King g7, Gukesh pushes his pawn to h3, h5 by Ding. Black's moves are easier to make. It remains to be seen how ambitious Ding is. In general, he would be okay with a draw, I believe, but here he has a risk-free position to just keep playing, and he may want to just keep trying. Now the bishop is attacked here. He plays his bishop to b5. Rook comes to c5. Bishop d3. But Gukesh tries to now clarify the position with f4. Gf4 played. G takes f4. Rook c3. And the king comes up to f2. The knight jumps in, attacking the bishop on d3. He plays king to e3. And finally, Ding is able to give Gukesh isolated pawns, but in a way, uh, the position has clarified. He had to give up his knight for the bishop. So takes here, and he plays rook c2 on the 39th move. And the idea is to go rook h2 to attack here. So Gukesh quickly comes up with his king. If you attack here, then he'll go king g3. Rook comes to d2, attacking the pawn. And the players have reached move number 40. Rook a3 to defend the pawn. That's a good move. Rook a3 is played. And king g6. He goes rook b3, waiting. Pawn to f6. Rook a3. And king to f5 played. You give a check and now you can go back, and it could be a repetition there with rook a3. But Ding decides to push his pawn forward with e5. And Gukesh takes on e5. Rook takes d3 check. And he goes king e2. Ding wins a pawn here, but the remaining pawn is an h pawn here. And you can see Gukesh looking at Ding. Is this a draw? But I think they'll play it out till the end. King f2. h4. King g2. Check. King h2. And the king goes back to g6. And Gukesh waits. The rook comes back, offering a trade. And he takes it. It's a drawn pawn endgame. I believe Ding can try to stalemate Gukesh here by pushing his king backwards, but he's too nice of a person to do that. And the pawns are traded. Bare kings. They fight until bare kings there. And it's a draw. It's a great game. It was a very accurate game, one can say. A great fight.